Hello, welcome to episode 8 of our podcast, A Couple of Silmarils, where we read J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion, and then we get on here and we talk about it. This week, we are going through chapters 14, 15, and 16, where we learn a little bit more about the places in Beleriand, where the Noldor elves end up taking building their realms and their halls and their mansions, and then also about some specific some stories about some specific elves, and we get introduced to some new characters. So that's kind of a quick overview. We are going to start in chapter 14, and chapter 14 is pretty much a map in a chapter. So Tolkien just talks about all the different cities and places and where they are on the map. And so I will be bringing a map up and we will both kind of going through that as we go through this chapter. So this chapter is very map heavy.
It's almost a verbal description of a map. So I kind of wonder if he was just writing in all the thoughts in his head, and then he's like, okay, now I'm going to actually draw the map, or if he drew a map first, and then he's like, now let me talk about a map. I'm a bit unsure of the order of this, but it is a very descriptive map, and this map actually does appear in the Silmarillion too. This chapter actually has a page with a map in it as well. Mm-hmm. So at one point, him and Christopher put a map together.
Yeah, I know that he had quite a smart. This is so silly. Smart brain, and so to me, I think he could have held that map in his brain and described it in the chapter without writing it.
And then maybe Christopher's like, "Hey,
Dad,
everybody
I don't know what
else kind of would like a map."
Yes. Yeah, that's how I feel. All right, so we're going to bring up the map of Beleriand. This is found in most of the books that you'll buy of the Silmarillion. We're going to just start with Melkor, where Melkor lives. He lives in Angband. Now, Angband is not on this map, right, Ethan?
Well, it's north of Angband.
It's north up here. Right up so there, yeah. It's the one place we'll talk about that's not on this map. There are some drawings we found online that have Angband in it, but it's not really mentioned the rest of this chapter, so we didn't feel like we needed that one. He took up his dwellings in Angband, in the dungeons beneath Aredhel, which is a mountain pass. They're called the Iron Mountains. They're also up here that we can't quite see. He made thunderous mountains on top of Thingordrum, thunderous towers on top of Thingordrum. So that's kind of all they mention of Melkor in this chapter. And then we move on to.
They also mention like there's a lot of smoke and kind of ash and things covering his land and whatnot.
Yes, it kind of darkens some of the areas around because of all the mist and the nastiness coming from.
And his orcs don't like the sun, so.
Yeah, and it keeps it dark for the orcs because, yeah, you're right, they don't like the sun. So to the west of Thingordrum, it's called Ulmo. That's what it was first called, but it's later called Hithlum. So that's over here to the west of Angband, Hithlum.
And I found that just finding the name that Tolkien's just going to continue to call it is like, that's all the one I've started to worry about too, because they mentioned several, like, it was called by this, and this by this, and these people call it that, but everyone else calls it this, and it seems like he's like goes by that the rest of the book, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, so we'll call it Hithlum for the rest of the time too. The borders of Hithlum are these mountains that you can see. So to the west is the mountain pass of Aredhel, and then to the east is the mountain pass of Aredhel. It also comes down into the south, that mountain, the Wethrin. I noticed Ared. If it starts with Arid, it's a mountain pass. I don't know the connection between that word.
Yeah, I wonder what that means in Elvish. That probably means something, probably the mount or something of that sort. But yes, that's a good connection.
Fingolfin and Fingon rule in Hithlum. Most of Fingolfin's people dwell in Mithrim. Mithrim's on the southeast side of Hithlum down here. They like to dwell on the lake Mithrim, so they dwell kind of around the lake. It's called the Great Lake. Fingon's people were given the area of Dorthonion, so that's on the east side of Hithlum over here. They kept watch on Ardgalen. Remember, Ardgalen's over here, so I think that mentions they use the mountains to keep watch, but I'm not.
Well, they say Ithilcirion is their main fortress, which is to the right there of Mithrim.
Oh, up here
yes.
they use that. Okay.
Yeah, so it seems like their army is stationed there, but their people live in Dorloman.
Yes, I do have that right after. I just didn't say it. Their cavalry rode into Thangordrim, and their horses increased swiftly. So their horses actually came from Valinor, which I thought was interesting. They came on the ships with Fëanor's people. So you're thinking Fëanor like leaves Fingolfin's people and the other brother Finarfin, and leaves his people, but brings the horses.
Finarfin had left beforehand. He never.
I know, but he leaves. Yes. He takes the horses. He leaves the people, and he takes horses. It's just very interesting to me. But there's horses in Beleriand or in Hithlum up there, and they mostly use their cavalry to move around. So,
in terms of other things I had for Hithlum, it is cold in the winter, though things can grow there. It is. There, and the only other note I had was the cavalry. It seems like most of them are from Valinor, and Maedhros, one of Fëanor's sons, he actually gifted a lot of cavalry to Fingon as a penance for their sins in leaving them in the burning of the ships at Loskar. So
that was nice of them.
It was appropriate as they have to rebuild life together.
Yeah. We move now further west, on the map, and then we are going to move to Nevrast. Nevrast is west of Dorloman, so this is Dorloman over here, and then south of the Firth of Drengest. If I remember, the Firth of Drengest is where Fëanor's people came in.
That's
right?
Where they landed. Yeah,
this is where they
Loskar is right on the where the ocean comes in, and then the Firth goes all the way through.
So that's what's interesting is that the people, Fingolfin's people, kind of stay in that area, which is interesting. So now we're down in Nevrast, south of the Firth of Drengest. It's also bounded by mountains, or its boundaries are mountains and the sea. Aredhel, I believe, on the east. And I'm not quite sure what that mountain pass would be. And this is Aredwethrin on the south, the mountain pass of Aredwethrin. It mentions that Nevrast is seen to belong more to Beleriand than to Hithlum. There's a lot of Sindar people that live there, and it just says that it was a milder land. It was watered by the winds of the sea, and the mountains sheltered it from the cold. We didn't mention, but Hithlum was a pretty cold area. So Nevrast was a little cooler. A lot of the Grey Elves also live in Nevrast. So I was saying there's Sindar Elves and there are Noldor Elves in that area, but they live along the coast. The reason being is that in the days of old, Ulmo and Ossiriand would come up along the coast here and meet with the Grey Elves. So that's probably why a lot of them had stayed there. All of the elves in Nevrast took Turgon as their king, so even the Sindar elves, and the mingling of the Noldor and the Sindar elves happened the earliest in this area. So that started happening. Turgon names his halls Vinyamar, and he builds it near the sea. So next to the Mount Terrace here, all the way in the west, there you can see Vinyamar is right there.
And kind of the other thing I had in Nevrast was I just thought it was pretty interesting that the Sindar did take Turgon as lord. This is saying Thingol is not going to be our king. Turgon is, and so Thingol kind of is the original one that has the land, and everyone starts moving in around him, and they start taking Turgon as lord, as Thingol kind of stays inside the girdle of Melian and is more protected in there.
Okay. I gotta keep showing Ethan because if he's blocked he's blocked by the map for most of this podcast, but I gotta make sure we see his face.
Still here.
He's still here. So now we go south of Ardgalen to Dorthonion, in the great pine forest of Dorthonion. And where's that? I see it.
Dorthonion is
it's here. No, Doriath is there. Dorthonion's up here.
Yeah.
I will cut that out. Angrod and Ignor, the sons of Finarfin, watch over the fields of Ardgalen, and they are vassals of their brother Finrod. He is the lord of Nargothrond, which we'll talk about later, which is all the way over here further east. And their people were few because this land was pretty barren and also pretty scary and evil.
A bit impassable, too.
Yeah. Between Dorthonion and the shadowy mountains, there's a narrow vale. This is called the Pass of Sirion. That's over here, right?
Yeah, I believe it's with the river.
This is where Finrod held, and he built on the Isle of Sirion in the middle of the river. There's this like island you can kind of see where the river splits and then comes back together. He built a mighty watchtower called Minas Tirith. Now, I did ask Ethan, is that the Minas Tirith? Because I don't know the lore. And he said no. So you could follow up on that.
Well, yeah, this whole, spoiler alert, this whole area, I believe, ends up getting destroyed at the end of this movie, at the end of the Silmarillion. So Minas Tirith is quite a bit southeast of this, where Mordor is.
Yeah. So that is where we are right now. Up
but
here.
I do assume that the name comes from whoever named Minas Tirith, the city.
It has to have be a connection. I would
the connection there, because there is, as Addie pointed out, it's like a fortress next to kind of the Dark Lands, and so there is some similarities there.
When you look on this map, you can see several large rivers that almost go from north all the way down to the south end of the map. And so the first one they start talking about is the mighty river Sirion. The mighty river Sirion starts up in the mountains, and I think up here where we were talking about Tol Sirion, and then it comes down all the way down to the south end of the map. West Beleriand, on the west side of the map, is also west of the river Sirion, and there's the forests of Bethril are there, which are up here in between the rivers Sirion and Maeglin. And then the land of Nargothrond is in between Maeglin and Narog. So here's the river Maeglin is a lot shorter than the Sirion here, and down a little bit further south is the realm of Nargothrond. And Nargothrond kind of goes on both sides of the river Narog. The river Narog starts on the at the base of the mountains of Aredhel. It's interesting the rivers start at the mountains. I never thought of that. Is that something that happens because the water's flowing from the mountains and then it creates this river and it flows all the way down to the south? It's also one of the larger rivers. And it says that it flows around 80 leagues when it joins the river Sirion on the south end of the map. In the land of Nan Tethrin down here, it's like a forest. It says it's a region of meads filled with many flowers where few people dwell. So that's all we know about it.
And yeah, a lot of times the rivers do come down from the mountains. That's how you kind of get a current for a lot of them too.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't done a lot of.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done my science class on that. I'm sure.
Topography? I don't know what it is. So this brings us to the land of Nargothrond. It's not labeled as huge as it sounds, but it says it extends to the west of the Narog, all the way to the river Ninning, and it reaches the sea at Elglorest. Finrod becomes lord of the Elves of Beleriand between the river Sirion and the sea, except he is not the lord of this area here all the way on the west side at the coast called Phallus, because Círdan, the shipbuilder who we've heard about before, he dwells there with his people. Círdan and Finrod
it's Círdan, just to.
Oh, thank you. Círdan,
yeah.
Círdan and he and Finrod do become friends and were allies. The Noldor also help them rebuild some of their, not rebuild because they weren't destroyed, but like they just help them upgrade some of their towns here on the coast, Bithrambar and Elglorest. In these places, they become fair towns, harbors with quays and piers of stone. And Finrod also builds a tower on the sea called Barad Nimbus to watch the sea in the cape west of Elglorest. So you can see all the way down here. This is where he builds his tower. And real quick, Ethan, why was this not needed?
So, yeah, he wanted to watch over the Western Sea, but Morgoth Tolkien just says this was never necessary because Morgoth was scared of the sea and never attacked by the sea.
Yeah, he never builds ships. His orcs hate the water, or all his evil creatures.
And Círdan, another thing to note, they did. I mean, you mentioned harbors, so they obviously are building new ships, and these are people that are acclimated to the waters and could probably potentially get over to Valinor. I'm not sure if they needed to.
They weren't shunned either. So the last things on the realm of Finrod, his was the greatest, which I believe means the largest. But he was the youngest of the great lords of the Noldor. And it lists the great lords Fingolfin, Fingon, Maedhros, and Finrod. So he's the youngest of those 4 great lords. Did you have anything?
No, I think that's all I had on that. Yeah.
All right. So we'll pull the map up again. Goodbye, Ethan.
Bye.
And on the east side of the river Sirion, so we were on the west side, we were talking about Nargothrond, West Beleriand. Now we're going on to the east side. It's the widest area, and you can tell that when you look on the map between the each side, the widest side of, I guess what I'm trying to say, the widest part between the 2 rivers, it could be as much as 100 leagues of a distance. So we're talking about the land in between the river Sirion and then all the way west, the river Gelion, which is another one. Yes, east. I said west. I meant east. That's another. River Gelion is another great river that hits up along Ossiriand. So between the river Sirion and Mindeb, that's all the way up north above Doriath. So between these 2 a smaller river, Mindeb, is the land of Dimbar, and under the peaks up here of these mountains. Do you remember who lives there? Or what lives there?
Well, Ungoliath used to live there.
She lives more over here in the arid Gorgoroth. But the Eagles dwell there.
Right there. Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So it's cool that it says that no people live there, or they call them folks sometimes. No one lives there, but the Eagles dwell there. So it's interesting that they dwell in a place that's not inhabited. They want to stay hidden. Between the river Mindeb and then the Esgolduin, that is these 2 small rivers up here above Doriath. That's where Nan Dungarith is. And if you remember, that's where Ungoliant fled to. Many of her evil creatures are there. At this point, I don't know if she's dead yet or not. It mentions like evil creatures remain there even after her death, but we don't really know.
I believe she is dead. They seem to indicate that, yeah, she kind of left and no one quite knows where she went. But she's not. She doesn't make another appearance.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that, but that's good to know. This land, as you can imagine, is filled with fear. The south end here is the beginning of the girdle of Melian, so no one can cross here. And then up here is Ungoliant. So it's kind of a pretty, not very many people are there, dwell there. And if they go through there, they're going through there quickly. So the Noldor only pass there when there's a great need. So now we go south in the land of Doriath. And who dwells in Doriath?
Well, that would be Thingol and Melian.
Thingol and Melian. And only people with that Thingol allows can go within the girdle of Melian. It does go across a river over here a little bit, but it's pretty much stays within Doriath there. The forest of Neldoreth is bounded east and west by the dark river Esgolduin. It does mention that river flows from the Evil Mountains or the Mountains of Terror or something like that. So the water is pretty bad, and so you probably shouldn't even be near that river. On the southern banks of the Esgolduin, where it turns westward towards Ossiriand, so down here is Menegroth. So I was talking about where Menegroth is. This is where Thingol made his realm of 1,000 caves, as it's called. And that's pretty much all I had about Doriath.
Yeah, that one's mentioned quite. We have a good chapter on that beforehand, honestly. And a lot of these we've already talked about somewhat too.
Then we move along southwest of Doriath, where the river Eros flows into the river Sirion. And so that's right down here. There is another mere. So I'm glad we talked about what a mere is. That's where the there's like either lots of lakes or ponds or small marshes. So pretty watery area. It just says that the south of this region falls suddenly and steeply, and it looks like a chain of endless running from Eglareth beyond Narog to the west to Amun-Reb. So you can kind of see this on the map. They call it Andram, and it causes like waterfalls for where the rivers actually flow through. So you can see like the falls of Sirion here. So this area all the way across west, it goes all the way west to West Beleriand, and it runs all the way through to Arab on the east side of the map. Did you have anything on any of those?
I mean,
very obscure places.
Yeah, it seems like this is quite the Falls of Sirion right there. There's it goes. They say 3 leagues under the water. Can you point to that?
Oh yeah, the Falls of Sirion.
There's like it goes to a big tunnel underneath, and it says like it's just there's quite a lot of difference in landscape, or at least elevation, between Doriath up north, and then once you go through the Falls of Sirion, everything's I guess closer to sea level, if you will, down there, and that pretty big waterfall there, and that's all we had there. I just thought it seemed like it's probably a pretty cool place to see, but yeah, not a whole lot more there.
Yeah. The book then moves on to the river Narog. Narog is where Nargothrond is here. It says that it comes through these hills that we were talking about in a deep gorge. It flows over rapids in its western bank. And then the land rises again into a great hooded region of Tauron Froth, which I think is this area right here. And on the west side of the gorge is the stream Ringwill, and it flows into Narog. You can kind of see Ringwill up here. And they're mentioning this because this is where Finrod builds his realm, Nargothrond. So it's right here at the river, mainly at the river Narog, and then also the river Ringwill. So that is the river Narog. And so then we kind of move over to the other side of the map between the rivers Romdal and Gelion. There's a single hill. So over here, apparently that's a river. Actually, I don't think that's a river. Maybe that's a town. So in between these two places, they just mentioned the hill of Amun-Arab. Do you remember what happens on the hill of Amun-Arab?
Yeah, the Green Elves fight over there. I think it's Denethor is their leader, and he goes the first time the orcs come into Beleriand with an army. Everyone's taken off guard, and so he comes to aid Thingol, and he kind of gets to that point, and he fights orcs there, and that's unfortunately where he ends up dying. That's like the last battle the Green Elves fight outside of their realm. That's when they just retreat to Ossiriand, and that's because they didn't have a whole lot of armor, and so they took a lot of losses in their fights, and they decided they wanted to more remain hidden. And
made them very sad.
Yeah, they talk about in Ossiriand, I think maybe you're about to get to that too, that they were very good at hiding some of their armor or their armor or more what they wore was so good that a stranger could completely pass through their lands and right through the midst of them and never see them. And so they kind of have that aspect of the elves there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more when we get to the section on Ossiriand. So now we've talked about, like I said, there's several great rivers. Narog is one of them. It's not as big as Sirion. And then the biggest one, I think it looks like, is, well, it does say that actually. It's the Great River, and it is longer than Sirion, but it is not as deep and as fast because they mentioned that the lot more water is flowing through Sirion. So the river Gelion, it actually starts with 2 arms and then comes together as one river. So it's on the northeast side of the map, and one side flows from the hills of Himring here. It's called Little Gelion or Gelion. And then the other arm flows from the Mount, gotta look at the Mount, Mount Rerir, R-E-R-I-R, try to say that one. Mount Rerir, and that's the Greater Gelion. Those 2 smaller arms come together and they form the large river Gelion. Gelion is a river that has a bunch of, they call it, it's what is
The
the book?
tributaries.
The tributaries, yes, the tributaries. But it's a bunch of rivers that come off of. There's 6 tributary rivers that come off of the River Gallion, and you can see them if you're looking at a map down here a little bit further south. These rivers are called Askar, Thalos, Legoland, Brilthor, Dual, Wen, and Andorant. Between Gallion and Aredhel is the green country of Ossiriand. So we talked about that a little bit. So it also mentions that these rivers are kind of used as protection for them because it's hard to cross rivers. The river Andorant divides and joins again, and it creates a small island called Tol Galen. Andorant is the furthest south river that connects to Gallion, and you can see that there's this little island that it creates as it separates and comes back together. Book just mentions that this is called the Green Isle, where Luthien and Beren dwell after the return. So I'm sure some of you know who they are. I keep hearing
we know
them.
there's additional works called the Beren and Luthien, so I
Yeah.
assume we're going to get to more to them.
But we don't know why yet, so don't laugh at us.
And another thing on Gallion is there's no, unlike Sirion, there's no falls or rapids, but it's just it is much faster flowing than Sirion, and a lot of that's because of its constant tributaries that come down from the mountains that just really feed it.
So it flows faster. Sirion is wider.
More powerful.
More
is what
powerful.
Is what they say, or there's more falls and more dangerous, I should say. I don't know. It kind of depends how you define danger, I suppose.
Right. This brings us back to what Ethan was talking about with the Ossiriand elves, and he was saying that they are very skilled, and a stranger couldn't pass through the lands without seeing them. But what I thought was interesting is that the sound of their singing could be heard across the Gallion. So it's like they singing.
We know you're there.
We know you're there, but we cannot see you. It's very interesting. Because of this, the Noldor named the country Lindon, which sounds familiar. And Lindon is known as the land of music. And if you look at the map, the Aredhel mountains become the Aredlinden Mountains for that same reason. Anything else on the Ossirian?
Nothing on Ossirian, no. I guess it's called Lindon's called the land of music as well, which you alluded to as they sing. So, or it means land of music.
All right. So now we're going east of just Dorthonion. We're going to talk about some of Fëanor's people. So Dorthonion, if you remember, is pretty much the furthest north on the map that we're talking about today. And we're going to the east of Dorthonion, the marches of Beleriand, where it's most open to attack. This is the region that's called the Marches of Maedhros. If you remember, Maedhros is one of Fëanor's sons, and a lot of the sons kind of dwell in this area.
I think it's just March of Maedhros because it is actually his people marched over there, and it's interesting
Defended
name. It is not a marsh, but it is literally named after a verb.
Okay. I thought I was saying march. So if I sounded like saying marsh, I was saying March of Maedhros. They ride often up into Lothlin and east to Ardgalen, pretty much as, making sure they're watching out for Morgoth and his armies. The chief citadel for Maedhros is on the hill of Himring. You can see that here. And between Himring and Dorthonion, there is a small path called the Pass of Aglon. And this was a gate into Doriath. It just mentions that there was a bitter wind that went through this, and the Celegorm and Curufin, who are sons of Fëanor, right?
That's correct. Yeah, this whole area is sons of Fëanor on this side.
I know, but I can't remember if they're the sons of the sons, but I guess they haven't really talked about the sons of the sons.
I don't think they have grandsons of Fëanor yet mentioned.
Okay, that's good. So they fortify this area here, and they hold it. It says they hold it with great strength. Okay. Between the two arms of Gallion, there is the two arms, remember, the little and the greater Gallion rivers. There is a pass. You can see it on the map. It's an open area, and this is where the hills fail, and this is where the orcs came into East Beleriand before the third battle. So the Noldor elves really have to keep that area very fortified, and the people of Caranthur are fortifying the mountains, there is a small lake over here that this is where Caranther has his abode. And all the land between Gelion and the mountains between Revere and River are called Thargelion. So this, between River Gelion and the mountains, all this area, this is where the Noldor first met the dwarves.
Yes, I believe it's where most of Fëanor's people stay. The armies are stationed up north, and then maybe the civilization happens a little bit in that area.
So we're still up north with Fëanor's people. The sons of Fëanor under Maedhros were the lords of East Beleriand. So this is East Beleriand. Now, Thingol we know is in Doriath, but they're kind of the lords over this area. But like Ethan said, they mostly stay up in this area. The two sons, Amrod and Amrys, they live a little further south. I'm not sure that the book even mentioned where, but they seldom come north. Finrod is the only one of the Noldor that goes south down here. This in this, I don't know if he goes all the way to the woods, but he really loves to wander, and he really likes to visit the Ossiriand elves, and he becomes friends with them. It does mention, the book does mention that no Noldor elves ever cross this mountain pass. So there's a mountain pass all the way on the east side of the map called Aredhel, and they never pass it. They meet the dwarves probably near it, but they never go over it. So that,
and I believe those are also the Blue Mountains from Lord of the Rings, and so I think those are kind of the edge of Middle Earth as we know it in Lord of the Rings.
That does end chapter 14. Like we said, it was very much just a map in book form. And hopefully it really actually helped us become so much more comfortable with the map. So when I hear something, I feel like Gelion, I can see it on the map now because I was looking at it so much. So that was really helpful. Did you have any more to add to chapter 14?
I felt like in general it just helps, like the two main rivers are Gelion and Sirion. And so you know where those are, and then you have three sections on the map. You have West Beleriand, and then I guess they call it East Beleriand, but it seems more like you have a central. They don't call it Central Beleriand, but you can have a central section and then East Beleriand, which is Thargelion as well. So that's kind of helpful to just in general understand where things are. And then so if you're on that side of the map, you're like, it's easier to find where things are from there. So
yeah, it's really helpful. So it's helpful. They do that. And then we go to the next chapter, chapter 15, and it kind of talks about where all these characters that we already know, where they're living, where they're making their dwellings. And so that takes us into chapter 15, which is called Of the Noldor in Beleriand. This chapter starts out about reminding us about Ulmo, when Ulmo came to Turgon and kind of put it in his heart to find a place to dwell with his people. And he discovers the hidden vale of Tumladen that is east of the waters of Sirion in a ring of mountains where no living thing ever lived. And sometimes the eagles of Thorndor would go, but there was nothing else that lived there. I will pull the map up and show you where this is real quick. All the way up here is where they're going, these mountains, and then they'll go through, and we'll talk about that in a second. So there's a deep way to get to this, get through the mountains there, and it's under the mountains. The waters would flow out and make a stream. So slowly the water was eroding the mountains, and it makes this like almost like a pass, a cave kind of. And that is how Turgon gets through the mountains. And as he comes through, there's this like green plain, and then there's just a hill in the middle of the green plain. And this is where he was like, this is where I have to build my city.
This is what I've been looking for.
This is so cool.
The path, do you think it was like, did you get the impression there was no longer water there, and that was like in the past had been formed by water? Or do they have to like take ships to get in?
I thought of water just going, a little bit of water slowly going through and this like making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So like the erosion wasn't a ton of water, but over time it made a bigger pass. I don't know.
Do you think there's still water flowing through it?
I feel like there's a little bit, but I don't know. I thought of him in like rain boots sloshing through the water, but I
think that might make sense.
That's what my brain did. I don't know. So he resolves to build a city in memorial to the city of Tyrion. and that is where the Noldor elves lived in Valinor, and that was their city. And he's missed it a lot, and we kind of knew this as we read before, that he would like to build a city. So he returns home, and he's always plotting to think, how is he going to accomplish these designs? I don't know if he was taking too long, but Ulmo sets the unquiet in his heart again, like, go build this. I don't know why Ulmo wants him to build this so much either. Maybe we'll find out later.
Well, it seems like Ulmo had been stirred by the thoughts that peace will not last. And so he's trying to care somewhat for the Noldor, even though they're under the curse of Mandos. But
trying to protect him.
Yeah, they're like, look, we can't necessarily go kill Morgoth for you, or we're not going to. But here's some things you should be ready for.
I like that theory. So this makes Turgon be like, okay, we got to start it. So he gets all of his most skilled people, and they go to this hidden place hidden past the mountains, and they start building this city. The way I read it, it said 2 and 50 years. I think that's 52 years, right?
Oh, I thought it was 250
years. It didn't say 250. It says 2 and 50. But if you want to
put 250 years.
I think it's 52, but you guys could tell us which one you think it is. But 2 and 50, I feel like it's not 250 anyway. The name that he gave this city is Gondolin, also known as the Hidden Rock.
Looks like, according to the interweb, 52 years.
Okay, so he's been a while, but it wasn't as like super, super long time. Although they're elves, so they can just take as long as they want. He completes it, but before Turgon leaves Nevrast, Ulmo comes to him again and kind of gives him some warnings and some, like, I don't know what the word is. He just tells Turgon that he will allow him to make it to Gondolin without anybody seeing them. And so no one will know that they're going there and staying there, essentially. And then he says that this would be the longest of all the realms of the Eldalia that would stand against Melkor. He tells Turgon to remember the true hope of the Noldor lies in the west and comes from the sea. And he also said that the curse of the Noldor will find him too, and encourages him to have arms and swords in Gondolin, so he's prepared for battle.
They also mentioned, are you going to talk more about the messenger? So Ulmo also says, I think, though, the curse of Mandos is still on you, so I think you still could be found out from by being betrayed within. So what we're going to do is you're going to leave Nevrast, but I want you to make one suit of armor, and that suit of armor is what the messenger from the Valinor is going to wear when he comes to you and tells you you've been betrayed. Is how I read that.
Oh, I did not write that down.
So Ulmo,
how did I not remember that?
Yeah, so Ulmo says that it's going to basically, he's like, it's going, something's going to happen bad, or he senses it, because he's like, I can't lift the curse of Mandos, and he prepares for this.
Interesting. So he'll know.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought it was interesting. We talked about this in the last chapter, that the people in Nevrast were Noldor and Sindar elves. So they're Noldor and Sindar elves going to Gondolin, and they get there secretly and unseen to Gondolin. No one knows that they are there, and Turgon does arrive last, and the gates shut behind him. And they did not come forth from that land for 350 years.
And no one sees where they went, too. They just disappear from the face
of
the earth.
So weird.
And they just abandon all of Nevrast. Like, it's just all of a sudden a ghost town. It's just gone.
I wonder if the book will talk about in future chapters of people just being like searching for them, or being like, where the heck did they go? Because I don't think you're just sitting there like, oh, they're gone, peace. Like, I don't know, it just seems really weird.
Well, you think of the people that look for Thingol forever. When he was enchanted by Melian.
So they live in there. There's peace. They grow. They thrive. Their skill makes Gondolin very fair. And then I was going to read. It's a little bit, but it explains how fair Gondolin becomes. So, High and white were its walls, and smooth its stairs, and tall and strong was the tower of the king. Their shining fountains played, and in the courts of Turgon stood images of the trees of old, which Turgon himself wrought with elven craft. And the tree which he made of gold was named Glingal, and the tree whose flowers he made of silver was named Bethel. I always like how Tolkien describes the dwellings that they make and helps to visualize it. So, also mentioning his daughter Idril, who's very beautiful. She'll come up in this episode, actually in the next chapter. So, just remember she's very beautiful. Like there's almost as beautiful as Laurelin, which was one of the trees, right?
Well, they say her hair got its
As
light.
gold.
As gold, I believe the gold of her hair was as the light of Laurelin, which is one of the trees of Valinor. Yes.
So now this chapter moves on to
and real quick, he had put 2 trees there in Gondolin. One of the gold trees is called Glingal, and the silver trees is called Belthil. I don't know if that's going to have any significance, and they don't mention that they're anywhere near the trees of Valinor, but they do seem to be kind of a symbol of those trees.
Yeah, interesting. The book kind of moves to Finrod, and then Galadriel. So Finrod is while they're building Gondolin, Finrod is building Nargothrond. And if you remember, Galadriel decides to stay with Thingol and Melian because it does mention she's in love with Celeborn. That was mentioned.
It does mention that, yeah.
Doesn't mention it in this chapter, but Galadriel and Melian, they like to talk. They like to talk a lot about Valinor. Both of them miss Valinor. Both of them know what they're missing. And they were talking, and Melian just mentions that she can tell that there is some type of woe with the Noldor elves. It's strange to her how when they come over, they don't talk about any of the Valar, and none of them had messages from the Valar to bring to Thingol. So there's a couple things that make her think that there's more to the story than the Noldor elves have told them. And this was the first time where I was like, oh yeah, they like don't actually know that they were kind of they don't actually know the true story. So Galadriel's kind of like, well, you kind of you're getting close. And she tells the story of them leaving and the Silmarils. But she does leave out some of the heinous stuff, like the killing at Alcalande, the burning of the ships at Losgar, and the king slaying.
Kin.
Kin, yes, thank you.
Although
no
a king was slain.
But that was by Melkor. The kin.
Do you think Alway was slain in Alcalande, the king of the Teleri?
It doesn't say it specifically, so I don't think so. But I don't.
Does it not say he was slain? Okay.
I don't know. I would have to go back and look. So,
But then Galadriel, one of the things Galadriel does say, she basically says, yeah, we are not messengers of the Valar, but we did come over to attack Morgoth. And so Melian's like, okay, so you're here for vengeance, not because you're messengers of the Valar. So she knows that, and that's true to an extent there.
Yeah, Melian, it seemed to me that Melian kind of hinted to Galadriel, like, we need to tell Thingol this. And Galadriel kind of was like, I'm not going to. And so Melian does. She stops speaking of this to Galadriel, but she does go straight to Thingol, tells them all she has heard. She foretells that the Noldor will not be recovered by the power of the Eldor and that the world will be broken in battles. So this is when Thingol finally understood, because it also was weird to him. He finally understands, like, oh, they didn't come to help us with Melkor. It makes a little bit more sense. Melian is like warning Thingol, beware of the sons of Fëanor. I think Thingol sees that they have, it seems to me that Thingol sees that they have the same evil enemy, and the sons of Fëanor are pretty strong. So he says, he kind of agrees with Melian, but he's like, the Fëanor sons, they are likely to prove the deadliest foes of Morgoth. So he kind of sees to their benefit too. But Melian responds, their swords and their counsels will have 2 edges.
And Thingol is also, he's pretty disturbed or shocked about how powerful the Silmarils, and he's like, whoa, these are very, I don't think that Noldor even realized how powerful these objects are, or how I don't know, situational changing these could be if we could get our hands on them. But he's pretty shocked by these things, and I believe Thingol he actually did see Valinor as one of the first ambassadors, so he's familiar with the trees. And
I
that they
see. He went.
capture the light, the light of the trees and whatnot too. So
Interesting. These like rumors spread, and the Sindar start hearing the real reason why the Noldor come, and so Círdan, how you say it, Círdan, who's all the way, if we looked at the map, he's all the way on the west side, on the coast. He hears these, and it's troubling to him, so he sends messengers to tell Thingol what he heard. When this messenger comes, the sons of Finarfin happen to be there for some reason, and Finrod's there and all the other ones. And so Thingol's going to he gets angry to hear the news that of all the things. I don't know. Is he angry that the people are talking about it now? What do you think?
So I think one of the he hears about the kinslaying through this. So he didn't know about the kinslaying, but basically Morgoth spreads. Tolkien says it. He has the evil truth poisoned by lies, and so Morgoth has spies, and he starts the gossip campaign, and it's really a terrible truth. But he poisons it with lies. They don't mention what those lies are, and so Círdan hears these things and sends a messenger to Thingol, and Thingol's in the presence of Finarfin's sons, and he's like, basically, is this true? Is how I read that. So he does hear about the kinslaying.
So he does hear some new things that he didn't know before, and he gets very angry. And Finrod is there, and so he's kind of taking it out on Finrod, and for concealing some of the deeds of the Noldor elves. And Finrod, in his head, he's like, most of this is Fëanor, and they kind of paid the price for the crossing at the Helcaraxe and everything. So he's kind of like, he's defending himself. He says that he hasn't done anything against Thingol or his people, and Thingol's not taking it because he's like, yes, you have. And so then Angrod, he remembers the words of one of Fëanor's sons, Caranthur, who I believe Caranthur, he told him he didn't trust him or something. He did something to Angrod in previous chapters. So Angrod remembers this, and he's still angry with Caranthur. So he decides to tell Thingol everything. So he speaks bitterly of the sons of Fëanor. He tells Thingol of the blood of the war at Alcalande, the doom of Mandos, which is the oath that they made, and the burning of the ships at Losgar. So Thingol is very upset. Melian says the shadow of Mandos lies on you also. So kind of telling the sons of Finarfin?
Yes.
Telling the sons of Finarfin that like you still responsible for some of this, but we see that you Thingol does see that they did take they did suffer. So what Thingol does, he's still angry, but so he tells them all to leave. But he does say that he will allow them to come back. The main thing that he says is that the Noldor language will not be spoken anywhere in all of Beleriand. And so the Sindar hear this. They refuse to speak the tongue of the Noldor. And so the Noldor are forced to speak Sindarin and in their daily use. And it just mentions that mostly only the lords of Noldor would use the Noldor language if they're talking to each other. But
yeah, essentially Thingol is very effective at kind of quashing that language with this ruling.
This does end chapter 15. So now the Sindar elves know the real reason of why the Noldor are back in Middle Earth. We are going to cover one more chapter. In this chapter, we're introduced to a few new characters. And specifically, the name of the chapter of chapter 16 is of Maeglin. Is that how you?
That's how I have it. Maeglin, yes.
Maeglin. Okay. I was saying Maeglin, but Maeglin. So we are going to learn about a few people. They're still connected to the Noldor elves. So first, the chapter starts out with Aredhel, the White Lady of the Noldor. She is the daughter of Fingolfin. She lives with Turgon, her brother, in Gondolin. And so she is living in this beautiful city. And after 200 years, she is bored. She actually loved when they lived in Nevrast. She loved the freedom.
Which is a good point, right? You left all the open lands and you go into this. I mean, I'm sure it's a beautiful city, but you're surrounded. You're kind of in a 50-mile prison. I don't know if that's the actual distance, but so
it does feel very. I would think it would feel very enclosed. She loved to ride out in the wide lands and wander and discover, and so she can't do this in Gondolin because no one's allowed to leave because they know how to get in, and that's the rule. So she finally, after 200 years, she talks to Turgon and asks him to leave if she can leave. And it kind of the way that it was said was kind of like she had to keep asking and finally kind of wore him down. And so he said, you could leave, but only if you go and seek out her brother Fingon. And a few people would go with her and take her. And those people that would go with her have to come back to Gondolin. That was kind of the caveat.
He also doesn't like people that know the secret path to Gondolin. He's like, the more of them that are out there, the more
that's the reason.
that can find the way back.
She kind of was like, you're my brother and you can't tell me what to do. I'll go alone if you don't give me any escorts. So Turgon does give her 3 lords of Gondolin to ride with her, ask them to lead her to Fingon and Hithlum, and just warn them to be wary of the perilous roads that, Aredhel hasn't been out there in a long time, and so she may have forgotten. I don't know. Just take care of her, probably. So they leave Gondolin. She's able to leave. When they get to the ford of Brithiac, which we will show you on the map, I mean. I think can you read that? It's right there, right?
Yeah, that's Brithiac, correct, yeah.
So they're coming from Gondolin. Gondolin is up north. They've gone down south to the ford of Brithiac. So that's where they are right now. When they get there, she reveals really what she wants to do. She actually wants to go visit the sons of Fëanor and ask them to go south, not north, because she apparently was friends with the sons of Fëanor
before everything, yeah.
Yeah, previous, like probably in Valinor. Yeah. They could not dissuade her, so they listen. And they try to go through Doriath. So they're up here. They're going to try to get, instead of going through these lands, which are evil, they're going to try to go down through Doriath and then come up to Himlid and the hills of Himring or wherever they find the Fëanor's people. However, what's at Doriath?
Thingol and Melian and the girdle of Melian, to be specific.
Yeah, they hit upon the girdle of Melian. It seems like there's some guards there, and they're no Noldor. If you remember, no Noldor allowed to pass through, especially now that Thingol knows everything that the Noldor did, and friends of Fëanor. So she is told that the quickest way to go to the path, get to the sons of Fëanor is the paths that lead east through Dimbar, past the bridge of Esgaldwin and the fords of Eros, and come to the lands behind the hill of Himring. So let's see if we can find all that on a map. She's told to go through Dimbar. If you remember, no one lives there. The eagles do dwell there. Past the bridge at Esgaldwin. I believe is this the river at Esgaldwin?
Yeah.
And then the fords of Eros, and then come into the hill. So essentially, they're coming all through the darkest, terrible lands.
Sorry, Esgaldwin is right. Is that river there?
This river here. And then they'll come up through here. Exactly what they didn't want to do because they knew it was perilous.
Well, it also seemed like she wasn't quite sure where all the sons of... So it seems like she got some information there, too. But she was going south. So she was going away from them. So I don't know if she was intending to go around the girdle the safe way, or if she wasn't just quite sure where they were.
Yeah, I don't know. And she was told she'd meet Celegorm and Curufin, which are sons of Fëanor, on the road. But the road would be perilous. So she does decide to go this way. They get into Nan Dungortheb, which we've said before is very evil, and where Ungoliant and
Ungoliant left
dwells
a lot of spiders
there,
and other
and
evil beasts.
left a bunch of evil creatures. So when they're going through there, there's a lot of shadow and mist. They get separated. Um, the escorts and Aredhel, and the escorts try to find her, but in the end, they get like pursued by all these evil creatures and barely make it out alive. And they make it back to Gondolin and have to tell Turgon that they lost her. She, however, seems to be a very good writer, and she was fine, but she couldn't find them either, and does make it out of that area, but just alone.
Yes, I think I don't have anything else on that. Yeah, the three lords go back to Thingol, or Turgon. Sorry, go back to Turgon.
So she does come into Himlod and between Eros and Kellon, and she finds the people of Kelagorm, and they're very kind, and they welcome her, and they let her stay there. And Kelagorm's not there, so they say you can stay until he returns. Seems like she's there almost a year.
Yeah, it seemed like quite a while the way I said, like when it got late in the year, and I didn't know if that was a literal year or if it had been a few years or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So she's there for a while. Once again, it's Aredhel. She's bored again. But it only took her 1 year this time. And she doesn't necessarily mean to leave, but she just starts wandering farther and farther.
I think she has a writing and exploring hobby. And so, yeah, she's like, oh, let me go spend a few weeks out here and just explore more lands. I've been cooped up in Gondolin for 200 years. So,
yeah, so she gets further and further, and she makes it all the way to this wood called Nan Elmeth. This is the woods that Melian has walked in before, and there are enchantments still in that wood. So she's all the way down. She's all the way down here in this woods here. So she's come a little bit south.
And Celeborn's people were up in, not Celeborn.
Kelagorm.
Kelagorm's people are up in Himri, right?
Yeah. They would meet up here in the hills of Himring.
Yeah, okay.
So, Eol, a dark elf, lives in these woods. He was of old a kin of Thingol. They don't really connect what kin or how he's connected. But he was restless in Doriath, kind of similar to Aredhel, I thought.
Just soulmates, right?
Yeah. So he was restless. He didn't want to be contained in Doriath. So he flees to Nan Elmeth. He lives in deep shadow. He loves the darkness. He loves the night and twilight under the stars. And he shuns the Noldor. He does not like them. He blames them for the returning of Morgoth. But he does love the dwarves. And he teaches the dwarves a lot of the Eldar, and the dwarves teach him a lot. He is often a guest at Nogrod or Belgost, where they dwell in the Blue Mountains. And he does learn a lot of metalwork, and he creates a certain type of metal that's super interesting. It says that he can get it to be very thin, and you're able to wear it.
It's called Galvorn, which I was like, oh, is this Mithril? Like, no, this is not Mithril. So anyway, we'll see if that makes an appearance anywhere else. But it's called Galvorn, and he basically made a set for himself, and he would wear it when he went out, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And real quick on in those woods, those trees are the tallest and the darkest trees. It seems like in Middle Earth or in Beleriand, and so that was good because he could stay in.
Probably
stay in the
why
dark.
he liked it.
Yes.
He didn't have to see the sun. So I bet when the sun came, he was pretty sad because remember it was the moon and stars for a long time, and the elves really liked that.
Yeah.
He sees Aredhel. What have I been saying?
So it's what I got was Aredhel. It sounded like a THEL, but I mean it's probably a Thel or Aredhel.
I'm gonna say Aredhel. So Aredhel is coming into the forest. He sees her come in. She's very beautiful, and he desires her. He sees her as very fair, and he sets enchantments on her and on the woods to where she cannot figure out how to escape. She comes further and deeper into the woods until she reaches his door. And when she's at his house, he reveals himself and welcomes her in. And she remains there, and Eol takes her as his wife.
Yeah, I mean, he just had to save her. She couldn't find her way out, and there he was. I guess
It seems very sketchy. Even
Very sketchy.
Even Tolkien thinks it's sketchy because in the next paragraph he literally says it is unknown whether she was unwilling. So
No, I believe he said she was not totally unwilling in this.
no, it said it was unknown.
She was not totally unwilling, and she did not despise her life with him, is what I believe what it says.
Okay, I'm gonna. It was not said that Aredhel was wholly unwilling.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, that says
No, if it's not, it was no one said she was wholly unwilling, is what
okay.
it says.
So she kind of
and then if you read the next,
I saw it.
It says and her life with him was not
terrible.
Terrible, yeah.
They got to travel a lot together. He does shun the sun, so they travel at twilight or in the dark, but they do get to travel a lot together. And then when he goes abroad alone, she gets to kind of do her own thing. So her life it seems like she's pleased
but
with
he
her
does
life.
tell her she can't leave Nan Elmarith, and forbids her to go see the sons of Fëanor. So
I thought it was only that he forbid her. Well, that makes sense that she couldn't leave the forest.
yeah. So basically, she went from Gondolin trap to kind of in this forest trap. She still doesn't get to go see the sons of Fëanor. Yeah,
that she.
Well, it's funny. Aeol, I had it's spelled EOL, but my phonetic here was A-OLE and Aeol.
Aeol.
So.
So he is an a-hole. Okay. They live together. They seem to be happy, I guess is what we're trying to say. She does bear him a son. She gave him the Noldor name Lomin, but Aeol gave him a name not until he was 12 years old. I don't know why. Maeglin. And it stands for sharp glance. His eyes were as piercing as his father's, and his thought could read the secrets of hearts beyond the mist of words, whatever that means. So now they have a son, Maeglin. It's interesting how they said this. He resembled the Noldor elves, which I believe in stature, but he was the same mood and mind as his father. But they said his eyes are like his father's too, the dark. He was tall and black-haired. His eyes were dark and keen, and his skin was white. He did travel with Aeol to the cities of the dwarves, and he learned a lot. All that the dwarves would teach him. He really liked mining ore in the mountains, finding it, mining it. It seemed like he really liked ore.
Yes.
Maeglin does love his mother more. She talks to him a lot about the Noldor, her kin. He really, it's put on his heart, as the book says, that Turgon dwelt in beautiful Gondolin and had no heir. So I think Maeglin is thinking in his mind, like, I am his nephew.
He notes that there's no heir to Gondolin.
And these tales were making Aredhel desire Gondolin more too. She started missing it, which was interesting how she left and now she wants to go back. And she's just so amazed that she had actually grown weary of Gondolin. She doesn't know how that happened. So this begins kind of Maeglin's plot to try to get to Gondolin. Aredhel refuses to tell him how to get there, so he's not going to leave in the middle of the night alone. He needs Aredhel to take him there. Aredhel, thank you. And so he tells his father that he wants to go to the sons of Fëanor. He does not tell him that he wants to go to Gondolin. But this starts a real fight of mistrust between Aeol and Maeglin, and they stop trusting each other, stop traveling together.
Obviously, Aeol does not want him to see the sons of Fëanor, and he's very mad that Maeglin requested this.
Yeah, he kind of was like, you are not a Noldor elf. You are from my kin. You're the Teleri, the Noldor elves killed some of the Teleri. He is just all these things.
Why he says, if you go try, I will bind you, is what he says.
Yeah, so that kind of shows Maeglin some of his father's character too. Like, you're going to bind your own son.
Yeah, he says he's silent. He's like, he cannot believe that. Yeah, he cannot believe that response because him and his father would spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. So sad. So during the midsummer, the dwarves have a feast and they invited Aeol to this feast, like we said. Maeglin's not going anywhere with his father anymore, so he goes alone to this feast in Nogrod, and Maeglin and Aredhel were free to roam only the forest where they wanted. So Maeglin gets in his head. Well, he already had this in his head, but he decides that this is a good time to ask his mom to take him to Gondolin, and he needs her as his guide. And so she is so thrilled that her son wants to go to Gondolin, and it seems like we said before that she's been really having a big desire.
It seems
to
like
go
it's been
back.
building up in her mind too, and then so this was like kind of pushed over the edge. Like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and so she tells the servants, they do have servants at their house, that they're going to leave to seek the sons of Fëanor. And so they ride away north, and then they're actually making their way towards Gondolin, and they go along the fences of Doriath. So Eöl, actually, he returns a little bit sooner than Maeglin thought he would. He's only 2 days behind them. And so he hears from his servants, like we said, they told the servants they're going to go see the sons of Fëanor. So he thinks he needs to go north, go to Himlad, and he gets stopped by one of the riders of Curufin, and he gets questioned. And he's kind of like, "Oh, I'm just trying to catch up with."
And remember, he does not like Fëanor's sons, and they don't like him. This is not.
And it's probably pretty hard for him to try to feign.
To try to be polite, yeah.
Yeah, that he's like trying, like it was kind of like, "Oh, my wife and my son are going on a trip, and I'm just trying to catch up to them and go along with them." And Curufin kind of sees through this. He also, actually, it was interesting. Eöl calls his wife. He says that she's of the Noldor or something. He says something about her lineage, and Curufin, he just saw them fleeing over to Gondolin, and so he does not believe Eöl, that he was just trying to join them. Curufin allows Eöl to leave, but told him to not flaunt the title of his wife, for those who steal the daughters of the Noldor do not gain kinship with their kin.
He's like, don't pretend like we are related now, because
don't use that.
I don't believe that Aredhel really.
Aredhel.
Aredhel really. It seems very suspicious circumstances that she's your wife. So
yeah, it seems like they probably knew that Woods was enchanted, and they probably wondered if some of that was involved. Yeah. He does warn Eöl, Curufin does. He warns him that you should go back, because you probably will never return if you don't go back to your home. Which is interesting. Eöl, of course, in his anger and everything, wrathfulness, he did not listen to him. And he realizes if they are going in that direction, if Aredhel and Maeglin are not coming to the Sons of Fëanor, and they're actually going further west, then they're probably making their way to Gondolin. And so he starts pursuing them in haste. He has a better horse than them, but he does not catch up with them until they reach all the way to Brithiac, and they have to abandon their horses at Brithiac to make it to Gondolin. We'll post up here where Brithiac is. Is it here?
Yeah.
So they've made their way all the way across here. Apparently they didn't have any trouble going across. I don't know which way they went.
And Dorget, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't get
they went to the path right closest to the girl.
Oh, yeah. You said that. You didn't say that. The book said that they were right on the edge of Doriath.
Yeah.
So they get to Brithiac, and they have to abandon their horses, and it was sad as they were leaving their horses betrayed them, and they neighed. And so that's when Eöl's horse heard that, and they rode toward their horses, and Eöl stops from afar, and he can see them go into the secret pass of the mountain. So otherwise he wouldn't have known where that secret pass was, but because he could see them go in, he was able to follow them, unbeknownst to Aredhel and Maeglin.
Yeah.
And Aredhel arrives in Gondolin with a son. Everyone's really thrilled about this. Obviously, Turgon is thrilled to see his sister and see that she has a son. That's really exciting. He sees Maeglin. He says he would be worthy to be a prince of Noldor. So he's probably already thinking like an heir. I don't know how he feels about.
Turgon greets him very well. Yes.
And it specifically says that Maeglin took Turgon as his lord. And he was very amazed by Gondolin I'm sure just he was amazed of the strength, but also of the beauty and just
I mean,
how
this guy's lived in the woods with maybe
in
one
the
other
dark.
living. Yeah, yeah.
So his eyes were especially drawn to Idril, the king's daughter. So we did mention her in the last chapter, and Idril is very beautiful. Eol does follow them, and he finds the secret path. And as he's going in, he is found by a guard, and he is taken and questioned, and just says, I'm the husband of Aredhel, and Maeglin's my son, and I'm here to get them. I don't know exactly. He might have just been, I'm here with them.
No,
But was he? Did he show his colors when he was questioned by the guard?
because when they reported to Turgon, he's like, hey, he's very hard to restrain, but you said we're not allowed to kill anybody, so we're restraining him, but he's mad.
Okay.
So it seems like he comes through in a huff.
And it reveals his.
Yeah, he's like,
his
I am
true
the
colors.
sister of Aredhel, and they all know who she is, and probably just saw her just a little bit. I'm the husband of Aredhel, and just saw her come through. Yeah.
Yeah, Aredhel confirms. She's like, yep, that's true. He is my husband. Don't kill him, but bring him before the king for the king's judgment. So he comes in. Turgon is really nice. He treats him with honor. He welcomes him.
He calls him kin. Currafin just says, you're not my kin because you married a Noldor. Turgon says, yeah.
Yeah, he was ready to welcome him. But he does say that now that you've come in, you cannot leave. And because that is the law. Because now you know the secret path. And of course, Eol was like, I'm not going to acknowledge the laws of Gondolin. He does not care if Aredhel wants to stay, but he is leaving with his son, Maeglin. And Turgon, well, it specifically says that Maeglin does not respond. Turgon, he's like, I'm not going to debate you. Your two choices are you stay and you dwell in Gondolin, or you die.
He said, I liked how Tolkien put it, you abide here or you die here.
Yes, that's much, yeah. So Eol just stands for a while. He's really quiet. He just stands there in silence and doesn't move. And then, like, in a split second, he pulls out a javelin in his cloak and he throws it at Maeglin.
His son.
And kind of yells out,
I choose the latter. I'll die and my son will too.
Yeah. I will die and my son's going to die too. But Aredhel would not take this. She threw herself in front of her son and the javelin does hit her. They take Eol into imprisonment, and Aredhel and Idril both beg for mercy from Turgon. So Turgon probably would have killed him right then, but they were like, spare his life. And then, however, that night Aredhel does die because the javelin was poisoned, and they didn't find out that it was poisoned in time, and so she dies, which is so shocking. People just die all of a sudden. I felt like
they just introduced her and then dead.
I know. I felt like Fëanor died quickly.
The chapter is called Of Maeglin, though, so
yeah, not Aredhel.
Yeah.
So now Turgon is mad because his sister is dead. So he has no mercy anymore. Eol was brought before him the next day. He found no mercy, and they lead him to a black rock precipice, and they throw him off. Everyone in Gondolin feels like that's fair, except for Idril. They mentioned that Idril did not find this just.
She was troubled by the death penalty and stopped trusting her kinsman, is how they put it. Stop trusting her kinsman was, I thought, pretty strong.
Big deal. I feel like that's like a little hint of what's going to come to pass with her. They also kind of hint on what's going to come to pass with Maeglin. So Maeglin, he really prospers in Gondolin. They call him a Gondolindrum. Is that their army?
I think it's just a people of Gondor.
Okay, the Gondolindrum.
Yeah.
He's in very high favor. He brings some of what he knows of the skills that he learned from the dwarves. He brings there. He does even figure out how to forge. Well, he figures out how to mine ore. He finds more ore.
They have a couple good mines there.
Yeah, he finds ore in the mountains. He has a great wealth of forged metals. The arms of Gondolin are stronger because of him. He seems very wise. He goes into battle with Turgon. So he is really succeeding, and Gondolin really is the place for him. However, the book ends that Maeglin didn't reveal his heart. He really loved Idril, Celebrimbor, and he desired her without hope because the Eldar did not marry that close of kin. So Idril and Maeglin, if you remember, their parents are siblings, so they would be cousins. And so he knows even if he loves her, he can never be with her. You would think you would do that. You would just stop right there and be like, okay, I can't be with her. But he does not. This kind of just sits in his heart for years to come. Idril knows his thoughts, which I'm not sure why, if he talks to her or if she can read his thoughts, but she knows that Maeglin loves him and does not want anything to do with him. This makes it worse for Maeglin, right? The person that you love is like disgusted by you. And so this is
and she also is like that's such a weird thought, like that no one's really even desired to marry a cousin before, as far as she knows, and so she's like, it must be some of the darkness of the Curse of Mandos.
Curse of Mandos, and maybe that his father Ael, like they met him and saw how evil he was. So the years go by, and his love turns to darkness in his heart. So the love turns probably to jealousy, and then even to more evil. So a dark seed of evil is being sown in Gondolin. Dun dun dun.
And he desired to gain power, is how it says too. So he's like, I'm not quite sure if he knows what he wants to do with the power, but he's like, I'm going to be whatever I need to do, say whatever I need to do, say whatever I need to say, take on any projects I need to do to move up in the ranks and get more authority here in Gondolin.
I do find it interesting that they mention that he keeps his thoughts to himself. So it's a reminder that if we keep these thoughts to ourselves, they get worse, because he just ruminates on it over and over and over, and it turns dark. So this ends chapter 16, where we unfortunately meet Maeglin. I'm sure we'll learn more about him in future chapters.
And remember, he still has in mind he can maybe succeed the throne, but
yes,
of Gondolin.
It's the start of the some type of unrest in Gondolin.
Yeah.
But. I had a few questions. Did you have any questions to end?
No, I think everything we mentioned, we talked about as we were going through things on my end.
Do you think this might not matter anymore, because I feel like the book explained it a little better? Do you think Aredhel stayed willingly or unwillingly?
I think I would say she stayed willingly. I think she got to the point where she did not know what she wanted to do. She just knows she wanted to leave Gondolin. She's like, well, let me go to my old friends. And she hadn't seen them for quite a while, so she probably was not 100% set on that. But she's like, I need some reason to leave Gondolin. And so she fell in this enchanted forest, and it seemed like she stayed there for a few hundred years and stayed in there, and it was content. So for a bit. So I would say she was willing, but might put 60% willing. But
I think I would say that too. Just that there was definitely a part of it that it feels like Ael's very controlling, and maybe she liked that at the beginning.
Some enchanting as well.
Yeah, he can do enchanting. So then how do we?
She was a bit lost too. Like she didn't quite know what she wanted to do in life, and so
after 200 years of being alive.
I think way longer.
Probably.
I think way longer.
It's
just 200 years
interesting
in
to think of that.
And so she didn't really know where her place was. So it seemed to line up, and I think she accepted it at that time.
You alluded to this a little bit. What do you think of Gondolin, of a city just hiding from the rest of the world? What do you think that would do to a king and to his people?
It seems very.
We could talk about it for a while. Probably
it seems very premature to do. Like obviously, Ulmo wanted that to happen, but it is a bit like Morgoth hasn't shown himself for hundreds of years, and basically saying we're gonna just leave everybody and kind of do our own thing. I don't know. It seems pretty premature. Like I would probably say I would have asked for like 10% of the population to go and start this city. So you have this fortress.
That's a good idea.
If things go bad, and then you could run to it later. But to move everything then seemed a bit premature. So that I don't know. That's my opinion on it.
I feel like it just does something to your psyche to be stuck somewhere that you can't leave. You start feeling, I don't know, in my head, you start feeling like you're the only people in the world and you only are worrying about yourselves. There's still a lot of people in the kingdom there, but it just, I don't know. It feels selfish to me for him to just leave all his people and just like, I'm hiding and no one can know where I am. Seems very, kingly. Kind of feels like like you're saying, they're running away too soon.
Mm.
And then did we have any Lord of the Rings connections with?
Let's see. We talked about Galadriel, but she's already been brought up beforehand. I'm not sure. None of those names ring a bell. In terms of, I guess we have the tower named Minas Tirith.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of, but it's not Minas Tirith. But it's probably named after Minas Tirith.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all. I guess what did you think of the chapter on the map?
I felt like if you are doing it like the way we're doing it, where we are talking about it afterwards, is really helpful because now I can think, I know where the River Sirion is and Gelion and where Ossiriand is and Phallus, and I could keep going. I could go for a while. So that's nice as you read to know. Ethan's been really good as we're reading. He will have the map pulled out and just like point to it. He remembers more than I do, and so that's nice too. He's like, it's right there, and that's really helpful. So I think a map is so helpful. So I think it's interesting that Tolkien just like stops and is almost forcing you like, look at the map. I liked it. Yeah, I think the connections to Lord of the Rings, I agree with you too, that Minas Tirith, there was something I was going to say with, it's sad because a lot of this land we're talking about doesn't exist in Lord of the Rings. So I'm going to know all these maps and then it's not going to be helpful later. But that's fine. I already know a lot about Lord of the Rings. So, real quick, I wanted to show you our mugs and then we'll go. We got matching mugs for Christmas, and I think they're cute. So now we're going to use them on this week's podcast. All right. That is all I had for chapters 14 and 16. Next week, we are reading
14, 15, and 16.
14, 15, and 16 is what we just read. Next week, we are going to be reading
17 and 18.
17 and 18. And it's going to be a little long again because I think it's like, what did you say?
About 22 pages.
22 pages, but we'll get through it. So thank you so much for listening.
A Couple of Silmarils out.